So good morning, everyone. I kind of know everyone, all of the members that have joined in on this call. We're super excited, but if I have not been able to meet you yet, I'm Victoria with One Acadiana. We're really excited this morning to be able to introduce you to a great resource. So one thing that Acadiana is known for is grit and tenacity and entrepreneurial mindset. And we're really excited that Fleur de Lis Title and Law Company has experts on staff that is able to help progress that business vision for people within the Acadiana area in South Louisiana. So Fleur de Lis Law and Title, they are across South Louisiana with multiple locations, with locations here in Lafayette. And then we're going to be hearing from the main presenter. She's located in Covington. And they have an array of different services that they can give you as a law corporation, a law firm. So all the way from your title and real estate needs to business law to mergers and acquisitions, so that you know that you're in good hands and they can kind of complete the full gambit of anything that you would need when it comes to either your family, your land, or your business. First up, I'm going to introduce our main speaker, and I'll kind of introduce some of the other attorneys that are on the presentation this morning as well. But our main speaker is Ms. Cristin Barr. So she is the one that just waved. Her specialty and her passion lie with helping small business owners, helping entrepreneurs kind of see the larger picture and maybe take them to that next level. She's fantastic at what she does, and she's just really knowledgeable. And I think her past experience of being an attorney, but also being able to work with the Ritz-Carlton and the Four Seasons has opened her mind to seeing larger corporations and seeing things that work and being able to bring that and give that to small business owners, again, to take them to that next step. So you're going to be hearing more from Ms. Cristin, and she's just fantastic. And again, a wealth of knowledge. You also see the guy at the bottom corner, Matt Long. He is our local Lafayette guy. His office is located on Settlers Trace right there in River Ranch. He focuses in more on that real estate needs, different title needs that you may need for your when you purchase property or a home. He'll be able to assist you in all of that. Coming from a background in and working with a title firm, Matt is fantastic at what he does. And if you know any realtors or lenders within the area, he really focuses in on them and makes sure that the client's needs are assessed throughout the process. And one thing that I think is really important, especially in the title world, is that when you send in your file, you work with that attorney throughout to the closing table. And I know that Fleur de Lis, that's really important over there for those guys, so that know you're in good hands. And last but not least, I'm not sure if Mr. John is on the call, but he is also a managing partner and attorney at Fleur de Lis. He focuses in more on that, again, estate planning and the mergers and acquisitions. So again, I think y'all have, how many attorneys do y'all have now at Fleur de Lis across the entire state?
Lost count. We're adding every time I turn around. This is a rapidly growing company.
Which is so exciting. Yeah, which is so exciting. So know that if you go to Fleur de Lis, you're going to land in a safe spot. There's attorneys there that are ready to assist you. So I guess without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you guys. I'm going to mute myself. And again, all participants, please use the chat bot to answer questions. This is an interactive webinar. If there's questions that come up throughout the presentation, please comment it. We'll be able to keep an eye on it and help facilitate that conversation.
All right. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen. Thanks so much for having us. We're absolutely thrilled to be here. And I'd like to kick off, if I may, by letting Matt introduce himself and just say hello. He's your attorney in your backyard. So Matt, if you'd like to say a few words.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. As Cristin and Victoria said, I'm Matthew Long. I'm right here in the Lafayette office. I manage our Lafayette office for Fleur de Lis Title. We have another attorney that's on staff with us here as well in Lafayette, Alex Bear. Just brought him on a couple of weeks ago. So we're super excited to have him. He's got 3 years title experience, so he came in ready to contribute. I also want to say thanks to One Acadiana, Victoria, Lindsay. Y'all have done an awesome job putting this thing together. We love working with you guys. You do an amazing job for the community and for the business leaders and owners in the community. So thanks for having us. Cristin's sharing all of our contact information on the screen. And like Victoria said, we really pride ourselves on establishing that relationship with the attorney that is handling your file, whether it be real estate, whether it be emerging franchisors, estate planning, whatever it is. So all of our contact information is on there. Those are our cell phones. You can reach us at any time, email, call, text. We're always happy to respond and looking forward to a great presentation from Cristin. So I'll turn it back over to her.
Thank you, Matt. So by way of introducing myself, I think I'd like to just explain a little bit about why I got passionate about the franchise model. So I'm from Mandeville, born and raised in Louisiana, and moved away for school, went to University of Texas at Austin, and got on with some big companies and was able to live around the country. So I've lived and worked in New York and in California and Hawaii, all sorts of places with these big brands. And one of the things when I had my child and wanted to move back close to friends and family again and move back home is that I had to promise myself that I would do a few things. And one of those that's really important to me is work on economic development in our area and job creation and job development. We need a place for our kids to work in the future. When I lived in some of these other areas where massive companies were headquartered, the opportunity for advancement and the job opportunity was just so wealthy. You had, just amazing opportunities for growth. And that's something that I think we can work with here in our local backyard areas, and which is why I'm speaking to chambers of commerce around our state. So one of the things that, given it some thought, I went to back to school, got my MBA at LSU about, 10, 15 years ago. And the franchise model was presented to me then as an opportunity in Louisiana that's a little bit underdeveloped in our opinion. So let me start by saying a little bit about the franchise model. So franchising in itself is not an industry. It is a method of growing a business. So it can span across any sector. There are probably 3,400 or more established franchise brands, and it's a business model. So what you're looking at here on the screen is the franchisor. Let's just define these terms so that we're all on the same page about who we're referring to when we say franchisor and franchisee. The franchisor is the company, the parent company. It is the company that lends its trademark and its business systems to others, franchisees, and they're the ones who will pay an initial fee and then ongoing royalty fees for the right to use the system and the logos. So for those of you who are on the phone, you might be identifying yourselves as the business owners who might potentially want to consider this. But what's interesting to me is that once I started specializing in this area, I have people who are sending me names of businesses in their community who could potentially grow in this manner. It's the business that you look at and you say, oh, this must be a franchise because they have a few locations and this product is spectacular and their branding is so great. But keep notes of those for your community. Send them into your Chamber of Commerce and say, hey, this company may never have thought of franchising, maybe they have, but someone should present this idea to them. And even if they're not ready, plant the seed now so that you and they can start thinking about these things and grow in a way that they, jot down some of their systems or maybe do a operating manual earlier than they would normally in case they want to do this. So let's talk about the advantages of franchising. I pulled this from Entrepreneur Magazine, but it makes a ton of sense to me. We're not going to go through them all in great detail, but the first few let's talk about. Capital. So with franchising model, the way that you are growing is by bringing on franchisees. They use their capital for the right to use your business systems and to help you grow. Whereas if you could and you want to, a company can also grow organically, and that is funded by bank loans, or maybe they cash flow it through their own business revenues. But capital is a great advantage for franchising because you need a ton less of it to do this growth in the franchise model. Also, motivated management. Instead of hiring just handfuls of employees, you may need to add a few to help you with your franchise, your headquarters office. But your franchisees are your management, and they are entrepreneurs and they are small business owners, and they're going to be your management. Very motivated. It's a very different relationship than an employee-employer relationship. Speed of growth, staffing leverage, ease of supervision, increased profitability, improved valuations, penetration of secondary and tertiary markets, and reduced risk are some other advantages. But at Fleur de Lis, we are very transparent. Nothing has only advantages. There are some major disadvantages. The sooner you realize these and give these a lot of thought, the more likely you are going to be to go in with open eyes. Upfront costs. I actually think that this is a very low number. I was surprised at this number, that this is what it costs to be able to legally sell franchises in all but about 14 registration states. We'll talk more about registration states. The $50,000, and I have another slide or two with just costs, because this is a big question for emerging franchisors. $50,000 is the bare minimum. It's the part you cannot do internally. It has to be done by attorneys. It's the legal documents that you have to be legal. And that costs, that happens right up front before your revenue comes in from your franchisees. Less control. If you have a bad employee relationship, you have steps as a business owner to terminate that relationship. Louisiana is an at-will state with employees. Franchisees are not employees. If you have a bad franchisee, it's tougher to get rid of them. Now, there are ways, because you have a huge franchise disclosure document, which I'll explain to you. And that is a lot of agreement that, that gives you some control over how to handle a franchisee that isn't staying within the margins that they need to stay within. But less control is a big disadvantage. And then probably the biggest one is decreased net receipts. If you grow your company organically, meaning you open and own all of your locations yourself, you are going to get to keep all of your net revenue, meaning after you pay your expenses, everything that's left is yours, goes in your bank account for your company. With the franchise model, the franchisee has invested and they have taken on risk as well. They keep the revenue and they pay you 5% of that. So the benefit, though, with the franchise model is that if you think about how many locations you can possibly handle under your own umbrella, if you were to 100% own these locations all under the corporate brand, you can maybe, open 5, maybe 10, 15 if you're a complete badass. Maybe you keep them all within maybe a 3-hour driving distance from your home office. You can be wheels to the ground and get to those locations. And that would be incredible. We can help you grow that way too. But with franchising, if this is of interest to you, you could have 15 locations in a single metropolitan area, and then you can have 150 in the state, and then you can have 2,000 in the country. And then if we want to, we can open it up in Canada, and then you can open it up in Costa Rica and across the globe. And you get the idea. You can really get your brand in a much larger, faster method than doing it organically. So what do we look for when we're talking to emerging potential franchisors to see if they're a good fit? It's not for everybody, y'all, but here's what could make a good potential emerging franchisor. A few existing locations, starting from scratch. If you have a business idea and you want to franchise it, it's good to know in advance, because we'll start helping you, develop your systems with that in mind, but you're probably not going to want to franchise from day one. Get one location open, preferably get 2 or more, so that we know that you know how to run it without you being there doing all of the work yourself. That's the goal, is to get it so that the system can run without you there, with getting your systems on paper. Processes, that's all about the system. So by processes, we're talking about documentation, software, website, all those kind of tools that are going to make it so that there's value to the franchisees when they sign on with you. Scalable, that has to do with, you can either run your business as 100% of your workload, or you can sell franchises and work on your franchise, work on your business rather than in your business, as they say. You can do one or the other, but you can't do both. So you might need to replace yourself with an additional hire, or you might already have that employee who might already be an operations manager, and that would be fine too. But just think about how to scale that beyond just yourself. Strong brand, we'll talk about trademark if we have time, and that we need to get your trademarks and your logos protected federally for franchising. But I don't want that to be a barrier to you. If you have protected your logos in the state of Louisiana, but not federally, and we are not able to get federal protection, maybe because there's a brand in Iowa that has a similar name and we just can't do it, don't let that be a huge obstacle for you at this point, or in business generally at all, is my perspective about it, because with not a ton of investment, you can hire great marketing firms and they can create a look and feel for you that you might even love more than the one that you think you love now. So brand is important and we need to protect it, but it doesn't necessarily need to be exactly in place right now. Sales, we talked a little bit about that, but I'll tell you more. A big question I get is how to find potential franchisees. Where would you even look for that? We'll catch that later towards the end of the presentation. And then passion, when you're working in your business, just loving what you do is a big help. So in terms of what it takes to become a franchisor, these are requirements. So your franchise agreement and your franchise disclosure document, I'll call those the FA and the FDD. Those are legal documents. They are very highly regulated by state and federal law, have to be done by attorneys. And once you get those two documents in place, you can sell franchises in most states. Operational. So these are documents that we recommend that you do yourself. Even a great intern in some cases can help you with these documents. And we'll talk more about in the next few slides what goes into the operations manual and your operational documents. This slide, we're going to skip over it for the most part. If I were speaking to a group of attorneys, we'd get more into depth about this, but the franchise rule is the federal code that legislates that oversees the franchise community. It's not a complex code in my opinion compared to say real estate laws, but it can get kind of complex, and you want to make sure as a franchisor that you are familiar with these laws and make sure you're staying within the code, because you don't want to put yourself at risk if you don't. But let's skip the rest of this for now for you guys. But what you do need to think about is your franchise disclosure document, because this is going to be public information. You by law have to give a copy of it. This is one of the documents that the attorneys will do for you. You have to give a copy of it by law to any person who buys a franchise from you. And it has a lot of information. It also, depending on some of the registration states, the public can also search for your FDD. So the things that you are putting on the public record, if you become a franchisor, the first probably 4 are about you as the franchisor. We have to disclose if you personally have ever been involved in litigation, bankruptcy. As a side note to that, it's okay if you've been involved in bankruptcy or litigation. We can explain that to the franchisees. Divorce can do that. There are lots of very acceptable reasons, that you may have been involved in these things. So don't let that scare you off in itself. We have to disclose all of the fees that are involved, startup costs for your franchisees. The government wants the franchisees to be fully aware of what they're getting involved in and not, just caught up in the dream of it. And then it goes on and on. We have to talk about what trademark protections you have in place. You have to disclose your financial statements of your business. So your P&L, all that stuff is going to become public information. Down the road, you might need to get audited financial statements. At first, for most states, you don't have to. You can just use your accountant's preparation of that. And then your franchise agreement. Each franchisee will have a franchise agreement that's unique to them. That's the agreement between you as the franchisor and your franchisee. It talks about what territory they have been assigned or they have contracted into. It talks about what training and support they will get, the duration of their agreement with you. It's usually 10 years, and then the opportunity for them to renew, what fees they're going to have to pay, and what royalties you've agreed on, and a handful of other things. But that's the gist of the franchise agreement. Then in terms of operations, these are the documents that you can prepare, but you have to, because this is part of the value that the franchisees are getting. Think of this as the way that your franchisees are going to hit the ground running. They're going to learn from all of your experience and all of the mistakes that you made early on. So for example, in your operating manual, you're going to want to tell them some pre-opening procedures, like maybe a pre-opening timetable, checklist of things that they can do to make sure that they're prepared to open doors. It talks a little bit about your description of your company, your culture, things like that, what makes you you. You also are going to have a personnel section, daily operating procedures, everything from when and where to clock in to what each person in each role does during each part of the day. You might have a lot of this already in effect, you might be using it already. And if you're not, even if you don't want to franchise, use this model for growth, these are things that you should start putting in writing. You probably already know that, but seriously do it. Take the time to do it because it's going to allow you to grow. It also brings value during your succession planning when you're ready to retire. If you don't have a child who's like just been trained and ready to step into your shoes, who's going to do this? So that brings you value to your company. The employee handbook is the HR stuff. So the expectations, it might be dress code, things like that. And then your initial and ongoing training. I know franchisors who do this primarily via video, and they have a software platform where they just upload all these videos. Some of it in writing is always nice. Remember, you have different learning styles amongst your franchisees. So, try to speak to all those different, learning points. With these operations manuals that you're going to have to do, let me put your mind at ease a little bit about these. When a franchisee is choosing what type of company they want to partner with, there are pros and cons with going with emerging franchisors versus the big guys. The big guys are going to have spectacular operating manuals with graphics and probably laid out by a professional designer. It's going to look like an annual report with photos and all this kind of stuff. And yours isn't. It's just not going to have that. It's probably going to have some typos. You're probably going to have franchisees that have developed something that they might even say, could you consider adding this to your operating manual? Because I feel like I might have, written it in a way that might even be a little better than what you have in there. What you provided wasn't enough for us to get done what we were supposed to get done. But the difference is that those big guys, those big franchisors like Subway and McDonald's and all those guys, they sometimes require liquid net worth of millions. And then even if you meet their criteria, you might not even be chosen as their franchisee. So there are pros and cons, and make sure that you talk to your franchisees about that. Don't be completely transparent with them. Tell them you're an emerging franchisor. They'll know if they read your FDD that your history is not long, but have that conversation with them and make sure that they know what stage of growth you're in and make sure that that's something that will work for them. That'll just help your relationship in the long run. And it puts your mind at ease that your documents don't have to be spectacular right out of the gates, just enough to get these guys up and running and making money, because then you make money, they make money, everything's a lot better. Okay, price estimates. These are just, I'm an attorney, I have to say this disclosure through the whole presentation. We're just talking for illustrative purposes. I can't guarantee these things, but you want to know, so I'm going to tell you. All right, so for the FDD and the FA development, that's the part that the attorney has to do. It's in the $50,000. I was about to say price range, but industry standard, it is just $50,000. That's what we charge. You can Google it. You'll find that that's about what it costs, and it's because we know exactly what has to go in there. It's regulated by law, and I know how long it takes us, and it's just, that's how it goes. You don't have to pay it all up front. You can do it in installments. Thank you. You can do it in installments. We can do a payment plan with no interest and just do it like $5,000 over 10 months, set things up like that. You don't have to wait till the end of it to get going. As soon as the document is drafted, we're going to give it to you. We want you to get selling franchisees as much as you want to. So you get it as soon as the document's ready. It takes 30 to 90 days to get those documents ready to go, barring really specific industries. Like if you're in oil and gas and we have to do a lot of research about the laws that govern your sector, could take longer, but that's just generally speaking. Then your operations manual development, those are the documents we just recently spoke about. Your team can do those. You can outsource those to, talk to your business coach about that one, the best ways to get that done. Financial statement preparation, your CPA does those. I don't really know how much that costs you, probably $2,000 to $5,000, but you probably know because you're already doing that. And then filing and registration fees. There are a handful of states that require extra fees to do business, to sell franchises in their state. California and New York are the worst. Maryland is tough. There are just a few that have additional laws on top of the federal laws that you have to handle before you can sell franchises there. And then a lot of them also charge additional fees, everything from $25 extra to $500 a year. And sometimes I feel like it's just a money grab by the states, but that is what it is. Louisiana is not one of those. As soon as you get your FDD and your FA done, you can start selling franchises in Louisiana all day long. Nothing else required by that state. I mean, on top of your business laws, you have to do ethical business practices and things like that. But in terms of selling franchises, nothing additional. The franchisees, when they come on board, they're going to each have some, revisions. They're going to negotiate. You need to get their FDD to them. You have to wait a certain number of days before they're allowed to sign. Then if you don't have electronic signature software, you might want to outsource that. We can do that. We charge $2,000 per franchisee. That comes out of and we'll talk about what they pay, but they pay $5,000 to $20,000 to you to become a franchisee. And so the $2,000 comes out of that as the legal fee section of their upfront costs. And then trademark protection, we're not going to talk anymore about that, but it varies. You have to you want to get your trademark federally protected. It's a must-have. So what revenue comes in from franchises? I put it in green because the money part. Each franchisee is going to pay you for the right to use your trademarks in your system between $5,000 and $20,000. Y'all, it's what the market can bear. So people always say, like, can I ask $25,000? Sure. But you just need to see how easily these franchises are selling. So you can charge as much as you want. It's not regulated. It's just they have options. These franchisees have options, probably in your very same market. If you're a coffee shop, there are coffee shop franchises they can buy. They don't have to buy yours. So that's the guidelines. They're going to pay that upfront fee, and that's a one-time fee. And then they're going to pay you ongoing royalties. 3 to 7% is pretty much standard. I usually shoot for 5%. But again, it's whatever you determine, do the research, ask around and find out what's going on in your industry. We'll help you with that. And that's what you'll bring in from each franchisee. All right, so low-cost franchises. The low-hanging fruit, if your business is home-based, low startup cost, that is an easier to market franchise system, like the cruise planners, windshield repair, home cleaning, corporate cleaning franchises. These are the kind of easier to franchise and easier to sell franchise models. More difficult franchise models would be, the example I always use is Chuck E. Cheese. These franchisees have to find commercial real estate. They have to sign a big old lease. They have to get all this overhead taken care of. They're going to have all the little games and machines, and then they have a kitchen, and then they have tables, and it's just a much different startup situation. Both are doable, but I love it when it's home-based and we can get these franchises on board fast and get them making money without a ton of training, without a ton of investment on their part, just easier to market. And then how to find franchisees is probably, after cost, probably what I end up talking a lot about with our franchisors. So there are a million ways to find franchisees, and also it's difficult, so don't let me oversell it for you. Let's talk about first who you have in your original network group. So if you have people that maybe you went to school with but live in a different area, those people can either be your potential franchisee or connect you with people in their market. I have seen franchisors who have friends that live next door nearby. Those friends will relocate to a place they've always wanted to live, say Destin, and they'll do that with the intention of opening a franchise there for their buddy. Side note, careful of doing business with friends and family, but that's neither here nor there. But you can help people relocate to open a franchise for you. Also, it depends on what industry you're in. So for example, if you are doing a franchise that is fuel delivery, where you're going to get a revenue model where it's subscription based and the franchisee and their employees are going to refill the fuel in cars and RVs and boats monthly. One of the ideas that you could use is maybe go speak to fire departments, treat the fire department to lunch, and anybody who wants to come learn about this franchise opportunity, do a barbecue or something for them and tell them about the business opportunity that you have. Those guys, if they get a flat tire on the road on the way to delivering fuel, they'll stop, change the tire, and get back on the road. I like the idea of military veterans as franchisees, because you want someone entrepreneurial, but you also want someone who can follow the guidelines. That's a big part of the success of a franchise model, is the franchisees can't go off the rails and do their own thing. You need to be able to ensure that the customers are getting the same or similar experience in any market that they're in. That's the whole point of the franchise model. And military veterans they would love to be their own bosses, and they'd probably be great at that. So I think about that. If you're a hair salon, you can look in different markets and get an idea of who would make, who's a good cultural fit for you, and locate an existing business, contact them. You don't want to find the most successful business in the market because they probably are doing fine and don't want to become a franchise, but find that middle segment of the industry, locate one of them and just contact them. Say, I have a business opportunity. I am reaching out to you because X, Y, and Z. Is this something you'd be interested in? If so, let me send you some information. We were like a sushi restaurant. That would be a perfect example of somebody who could just find a restaurant in the area that they're looking to expand into and reach out to an existing restaurant. So that hopefully gives you some ideas of how to find franchisees. And it's a good time to mention, we do complimentary consultations for any matter and any of the areas where we practice law, but especially for our emerging franchisors, that ends up being several complimentary consultations, because we really need to dig into this based on, what your business is like and what your business model is, and get some of those ideas in place before we pull the trigger and get you going. And then the other thing I want to talk about is more about how to identify future franchisors. So back to where we started with this, about what brings me to this area is that we really want our communities to grow in terms of that economic development. So it's a conversation I have on the regular. You can ask my colleagues, they make jokes about it, but I can be dining in a restaurant, and if I think it's kind of fitting into this framework, I'll Google it on my phone at dinner and check and see if they're already a franchisor. And if not, I'll ask to speak to the owner, or just get the owner's name and shoot them an email and say, loved your product. You should consider franchising. The rest of the country should benefit from this fantastic donut, or whatever, is going on. And I think that that's a great way, especially when I'm speaking to the chambers. You already have that mindset, and I really think it's an under discussed area of, for our business owners. People just do not think of it in terms of a fit for them. So be that ambassador for your town and your community. And then it's time for questions. I put a few topics to kind of focus on some areas where you might have questions. So we could speak more about the 9 advantages of franchising, more about franchise sales strategies, if you like. The legal documents, there's so much more to learn about the legal documents. If at the risk of boring everyone else, if you have any legal questions, we can talk more through that. Operations manual strategies. I'll expand a little bit about strategies. We have an index of what could go into an operations manual that I'm just happy to give to you. A strategy for getting that work done, if it's intimidating to you, is, let me think of some of the sections in like a operations manual. So let's say we're talking about dress code. If dress code is the topic that you're about to tackle, Google research it and just put in restaurant dress code rules and read a few articles, read a blog or two. Don't write it right then when it's fresh to you, because you might plagiarize. Sleep on it, think about how to apply it to your business, and then wake up and just write a few paragraphs about that. That's all you need, is just tell them, if you're a restaurant, tell them you need closed-toed shoes, rubber soles, tell them why, talk about safety factor. Do you want them to wear a collared logo shirt, or is a non-collared logo shirt okay? And that's it. And, just develop it. Just pick it and write it down and move on to the next section. So it's not that bad. You can reserve the right to change that. That's part of one of the things the franchisees agree to is they have to let you evolve as a company. Just because you used to let them wear non-colored shirts, if you decide that colored shirts down the road is important, you update it, notify them, give them a certain amount of time to comply. They should want you to be able to grow and develop because you're all in it together now. So that operation manual, not that bad. You can do that. Cost to franchise your company. If you want more details or want to go back to that side, we can talk more about that. And then potential revenues to the franchisor from the franchisee. Again, it's that upfront fee of $5,000 to $20,000 is usually the range. And then their royalties ongoing for 10 years, or if you let them renew and renew and renew, that can go into perpetuity. That is for every single franchise that you sell. And then area developers, we haven't talked about that yet. It's usually not implemented for emerging franchisors until you get your feet on the ground, but planting the seed for the future for you. You can, if you have a franchisee or even a current employee that is really leadership oriented and can be responsible for a big area, you can sell them a big territory like the state of Texas. Maybe they can develop franchisees under them and they become an area developer. There's additional legal paperwork that goes into play there, but that's a way that some of these big franchises grow so fast as they have area developers. For example, if you wanted to get into a foreign country, you can have one developer for that area and you contract with them in a different way. So food for thought for you. So with that, let's see if we have any questions. And if not, this is going to be recorded and shared more widely. Y'all can always email us or reach out to us with any questions, but let's open it up.
If you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself as well. If you don't have any questions, that just means that that presentation was so good it covered all your questions.
Which I think that's the case.
Is there a way to know, I guess, how many franchises are like owned within the state of Louisiana? Is there an amount?
Yes. So there are states where the franchise disclosure documents are public record. That's where I would start. So if you Google research, just put in states with public franchise disclosure documents. That's a great way to see what your competitors are doing.
Okay.
And get models for your business and see where they're selling. So there is a page and it says what states like that they have to disclose actual names and phone numbers of their existing franchisees. And that's so that potential franchisees can reach out and ask questions and vet the franchisor. But that's a one-stop shop to find a ton of information. So let's say I'm a hair salon and I want to see what is a hair salon franchise, how do they function, what do they have going on? You can go read, you can go find probably, I don't know for sure, but Supercuts. Go to one of those states, go to their, it's a database, put in Supercuts, put in franchise disclosure documents. Sometimes it says initial registration. That's where the franchise disclosure document is going to be, and you can pull that up. So you can definitely do some research.
It's a little like private investigator work too.
Yeah.
And really with the franchise, it could be anything. Because I know when we initially talked, I loved how you gave the example of like Flirty Girl. So it's not just specific to food or a product. It's even like services, like a gym. Like that to me is what's so interesting, that anything can be turned into a bigger dream.
Yes. And there are business models that kind of lead themselves more comfortably to a franchise model, but don't underestimate. People have asked me about certain things and I think about it and my initial reaction is, I don't see that working. And then we think about it more and maybe there is a way. So I would not rule it out just because you don't think of it in your sector.
Yeah.
Give it some thought. Let's figure it out.
Well, thank you so much. Like you said, we will be recording this and we'll be able to send that out. But thank you guys so much. This was a great resource and we're so appreciative of you both. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thanks, Victoria. Thanks, Lindsay.
Absolutely. And in
Thanks,
the
everyone.
follow-up with everyone that was on the call and everyone that registered, we'll make sure again to include all of the 3 attorneys' information so that you have any questions, they are there to answer them.
All right. Thanks so much.
Bye, guys. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thanks.